an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Sex Education, Season 1, Episode 2. In this episode, Otis goes to a party at Amy's house and tries to get some new clients. He has some success, he has some failures. Also, Amy's ex is being very aggressive, and it's time for somebody to kick his ass, honestly. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. Ashleigh is here in the chat. This episode was a lot of fun. It's been sort of remarkable lately. I don't know if it's the fact that I took a CBD before watching this last night, but this episode really felt like a lot happened in it for the length of time that it is. Let me check and see exactly how long the running time is on. 50 minutes. Okay, it felt like a somewhat longer episode than I was expecting. And I really appreciate, I just want to talk about this right off at the top. I really appreciate that Jean, Otis's mother, is getting a little bit of her own things to do. And what I mean by that is, with something like this, it's very easy for the parent to simply be like a source of conflict and treated as a background player in a way that feels very economical to the plot, especially when you're dealing with teenagers, but isn't actually realistic to the way that teenagers tend to experience the world. There are, of course, going to be exceptions, but most of us spent more time with our parents than anybody in our lives, even through going to college. And for some people, because I left for college, but not everybody does. And I understand the reasoning behind that. It makes things a little bit simpler. And there are some teen movies where the parents are brought in for comedic effect because they don't get something, or they're overprotective about weird shit, or, Dad and 10 Things I Hate About You comes to mind. But I just really appreciate that we get to see the relationship between them beyond just what's sort of uncomfortable. We get to see her going into his room and looking around, and she's clearly trying to figure out what's going on with him. And later on, I can't remember the name of the kid whose dad is the headmaster. Is it Jeff? Fred? Adam. Thank you, Ashleigh. He sees her outside. I love the scene between the two of them. Can I tell you, guys, he's chatting with her. She tells him that he should respect the fact that his ex doesn't want to see him. And he says, "You're like a wise old owl," but then proceeds to fucking climb the fence immediately. And I was laughing a lot at that when I was laughing out loud. It's such a great teenager moment of a teen. I know I have been this person where I hear the advice, I recognize its validity and probably that it's a better option, and I proceed to go and do exactly what the fuck I felt like doing and ignore it completely, because that's just, and before he goes and scales the fence, he says, "Wow, and I thought my parents were controlling." Here's the thing, is that I don't know if that's what this is. I could understand it being perceived this way, and maybe that is what it is. It's very difficult coming at this from the perspective of an adult now and understanding how many things could go potentially wrong, the kinds of dangers that your kid is going to face, and how difficult it probably is to decide when to step in and when to let your kid potentially fuck up, because that's just what growing up is. It's a series of fuckings ups, and then you figure out how to not fuck up the same way again next time. And that has been a major, like, for me, the idea of having to, like, raise a child and wait for them to get to the parts where they fuck up and you can't do anything to stop them and you know that you really can't, that for me is like a nightmare. I'm such a control freak. I just couldn't do it. And so I will admit, I'm coming at this whole thing from the perspective of somebody who is a control freak. The control aspect, it's not even necessarily about trying to control the other person. It's usually about me trying to control my situation. And the tools that I look for to do that are as much information about what's happening as possible. So what I think is going on here is that Jean's aware something is happening with Otis. There's a change in his attitude. And this, I'm positive, comes from this whole sex therapist thing beginning to, like, blossom for him. And she can feel that there's something new. And she doesn't really know what it is. So she goes to his room to, like, look through his stuff to see if there's a clue. And there have been a couple of different, like, studies about respecting space in terms of, like, a parent-child relationship. And that kids who were given space and allowed their privacy were usually more trusting, and they had like less paranoia and less shame than kids whose parents were putting their nose in where it didn't belong, perhaps. And there are some posts that have circulated that are pretty well written about kids who have found out that their parents, like, read their diaries and things like that. And just how utterly that destroyed their relationship with their parent. And that since then, they have never trusted anybody fully. And they have never felt like there was a place that they could be themselves and not potentially be either punished for it, depending on what was written in that diary, or at least judged. So I want to acknowledge that there is a line, there is a boundary that I feel parents really ought to respect. At the same time, there is, like, a point at which I feel they're still your child, and you have a responsibility to look into things if you feel like there is something going on. And it's just a really tough line to walk. And I mean, especially in this day where you can have all kinds of relationships and things going on online. It doesn't have to be in person, and it could still be incredibly damaging. You know, there all kinds of things could happen. They could be exchanging texts or pictures with somebody and that gets out, or they get kind of like blackmailed with them or mocked at school, or it could be something a lot more serious where they're being preyed on by somebody who's a grown adult, and, you know, who knows what that could potentially lead to. So I don't want to say that as a rule across the board, a parent should never go through their kids' stuff. I don't feel like that's true. But I do think if they've got a journal, if they've got something that, like, we all know that the accepted, like, societal standard is that this is for them and them alone, I feel like that's crossing a line. That doesn't really come up here because it doesn't seem like Otis has anything like that. He doesn't seem to have, like, a Tumblr or a journal or anything. She's just sort of going through, like, what's out on his bed. And I think that's fair game. I don't really have a problem with that. But the fact that she follows him to the party, I think is very interesting. I'm not totally sure what to think about it because there's a sense to her when Otis is there with Eric and they're, like, getting ready to go. Eric wearing this fucking, like, orange outfit. Maeve says that he looks like a What's-It, and I don't know what that is, but I just really like the name What's-It. And Otis says that he looks like a Satsuma. And later on, is it, what is his name? Anwar? He says you look like a traffic cone. The jokes about Eric's outfit I couldn't get enough of them, to be honest. I thought they were really funny. What's sort of interesting to me, too, I'm getting sidetracked. Let me come back to Eric. But the whole thing with Jean, I don't know exactly what her goal was in following Otis to the party. Like, I don't believe that she was going to go into the house. I don't believe that she was interested in invading the space itself. I think she wanted to maybe come and see exactly what kind of party it was, but there's a part of me that's like, did she even believe that he was going to a party? Maybe she didn't think he was telling the truth about that, because he hasn't really been a party kid, and this kind of feels like it's coming out of nowhere, which it is, because he's never been invited to one of these things before. So maybe it's just this sudden change in what appears to be like his social standing at the school that she's sort of like, that doesn't really add up, does it? And combined with the change in his sort of attitude, she's starting to see, like, wonder what else is happening. But when she winds up getting penned in, those kids roll up behind her and just park and then get out of the car and walk up to the house, I could not stop laughing. She's so irritated. And like, she could probably press the bell and be like, find out whose car this is and get them to come back out. But that would give away that she was there. And I think that she doesn't even want to like interact with anybody at the party. And it would be a good thing if she didn't, because if they saw her, I mean, we see what happens when a couple people pass her on the way out. They recognize her from the video. So that would have been a bad scene. Let's see. I think they're like Cheetos. If I correctly understand what Cheetos are, says Ashleigh. Oh, it is a Cheeto, but it's like not a good Cheeto. Because the good Cheetos are the ones that are like the crunchy kind. And these are the puffed kind. And these suck. But he does look like a what's it. Oh, that's funny. So, okay. I'm going to, thank you for that, Ashleigh. We should do an unsober episode on snack foods. Because, like, snacks are its own type of thing. And especially since I have been using CBD and Rashawn she has access to her husband's medication. It is a common topic for us lately, the things that we like to deal with our munchies. Ashleigh says, I like them. They're the cheap chickatees. Girl, I don't know what that is either. Y'all have weird names for your snacks. At least Cheeto. It's like, obviously it's like Cheez-It, like cheese. You know, I get that. But like, who decided What's It was a good name for a cheesy snack food? That doesn't feel like anything. That's not related to like the food that it's made out of. Chickatees. Chicken flavor? Chicken flavor. Are we serious? Chicken flavored? That's disgusting. I'm so upset. I shouldn't be this upset, because there's like potatoes out there that are like bacon flavored and stuff, and it's just a different kind of meat. But that's just so foul to me. Oh my God. All right, I'm just going to have to get over this. I'm sorry, everybody. Ashleigh, thank you for being here. I love covering shit and hearing about the weird stuff across the pond that I didn't know about. Those of you who have not heard my coverage of Dairy Girls, there is an episode where I've learned on the air what a curry buddy is. And like, I absolutely lost my shit because I couldn't believe it, because it just feels to me like the laziest, most repulsive thing. And I stand by that. I stand by it. So okay, I'm gonna start things off here with the actual opening of this episode. We have these two teenagers who are having sex, and they keep on sort of like, where they're trying to have sex. They haven't actually had sex. and they're trying to get a hold of one another the right way and not hurt one another in the dark because the girl is so afraid of being seen naked and really assumes that there's no way he would ever like seeing her naked. He says he wants to, but she doesn't believe that because she thinks like, well, you think you want to, but once you see me, it'll just be downhill from there. This is so depressing, you guys, because like, I remember feeling this way, and I was literally a model. Like, I can't believe when I look back that I had any shame about how I looked. It's just so appalling. And this girl is beautiful. Beautiful. And she doesn't want to be seen naked, and it's just tragic. People talk about like, oh, I'm glad I didn't grow up in an age where everything was online and that I didn't have like, you know, embarrassing photos that were, look, I get that and I don't disagree, but I will say that there is a part of me that is so bummed that I missed the like selfies and cameras basically being available in every device. Because there are so few pictures of me because I was so self-conscious that I didn't allow people to take photos a lot of the time. And if I had grown up in an era where cameras were around more, that wouldn't have been easy to do. You can't avoid it. And I wish that I had more photos. I wish that I had more fucking physical evidence to point to and be like, once upon a time, damn, I look good. And there's a whole like monologue that Moira has in Schitt's Creek where she's like, you may not believe it now, but one day you are going to have some like nude photos that you took that at the time you're like, why did I do this? But then you're going to look at them and be like, God damn, I was really something. She is correct. And I have a couple of, Owen has some nieces, and one of them is like 17 or 18. And she like kind of made a derisive sound when I asked if she was taking a selfie, and was like, no, ew. Like only a certain type of girl would be taking a selfie, and I'm not like that. And I stopped dead and was like, let me tell you something. You are going to regret not taking more photos of yourself. You are going to regret not appreciating how you looked. You are going to feel like an idiot one day. And you should absolutely take all the selfies. You should let other people take all the photos of you, save them, and then one day make a scrapbook of when I was hot, because that's what I would do. And thankfully, her mother was standing right near me when I said all of this, and her mom was like, absolutely. Oh my God, I wish I had more photos. And I was like, see, we know what we're talking about. Rowan says, I had a sexy website to help pay my way through grad school. And you know what? I'm glad I did. I will never look that good again. See, this is what I'm saying. And I wish that I had just gone ahead and tried stripping. Just tried it. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it, as a long-term career, if I would have done it for more than like a week. But I really wish that I had just given it a shot because I looked good. I loved dancing. I loved flirting. And it was the kind of thing that like you would have that memory of like really using your looks for something that gave you some power, gave you some money, gave you some anything. I just wish. There's a lot I would change. So anyway, They wind up like hitting one another in such a way that she goes flying off the back of the bed and hurts her neck, and he goes flying off the front of her bed or front of his bed and like breaks his arm. And I think it's break. And this leads to the scene later on where Otis is talking to the two of them because she's hiding in the bathroom with the neck brace on. I have to mention again, Otis's house is so gorgeous. It makes me really upset. I just want so badly to like, I want a house that isn't like, I'm not going to get into it. I just want that kind of house. So we cut then to another pair of clients that Jean is handling. And there's this guy who's with his wife. I think his wife's name is Clara. I don't remember his name. And she says, when your wife says she doesn't think you want to have sex with her anymore, how does that make you feel? Tim is his name. He says, bad. And she's like, can you elaborate? And he says, really bad. And his wife just starts crying. This was really rough. My divorce was in large part due to feeling like he didn't want to have sex with me anymore. He didn't find me attractive. He made some unfortunate comments about my weight and generally just made me feel really undesirable. And so when I encountered somebody who seemed to find me desirable, and there were other things going on, it was very difficult, because that's what we want. We want to feel like people want us. And that means a lot of different things. And the feeling of being with a partner who seems to just be uninterested in you is so devastating. It's just really lonely and just makes you feel like your life is kind of over, in this way that's incredibly demoralizing and discouraging. And it was such a brief moment, but the way that this woman starts crying when he just says really bad, this is it was just such a perfect capture. Because when you try and talk to somebody who treats you like they don't want you, and they just can't even seem to put forth the effort to talk about it with adequate language, which, yeah, been there. It is really hard to feel like they give a shit, So it was such a brief scene, but man, that really got to me a little bit. And we see that Otis is sitting upstairs next to the vent, and he's writing in a journal. I'm just realizing, I said before he doesn't have a journal, but he has a notebook here. And I'm wondering if he is taking notes specifically on what she's saying about her clients, because if she comes across that, I don't know what she'll think. I feel like I really don't know. Will she take it as a compliment that he's getting into something that she also does? Will she take it as a real breach of trust that he's been listening in actively like this? Does she know he can hear clients through the vents? Is she aware of this? Does she just sort of assume he can be trusted? I don't really know what she would think. So he wears a tie to school. And she comments on it when he's getting ready to go. And he asks her about what makes a good therapist. And basically her main answer is, you have to learn how to actually listen to what somebody is saying and help them figure things out without putting yourself into it, without bringing your own baggage to it, without inserting yourself into their life. And he boils this down to, it's not about you. And she says, exactly. And he really seems to take that to heart later on when he is talking to a couple of the kids. That is what he says, is well, this isn't about me. So I really like that. And that is something that, I have some friends who started therapy recently. And one of them said something like, I just want them to tell me such and such, tell me what's going on. And I was like, that's not how therapy works, though. The point of it is that they try and hold your hand and keep you on course, but they don't lead you in any direction. They just make sure you don't trip and fall. They make sure you don't completely wander off. But you choose where you're going, and they just let it happen. And they give you the tools to recognize the patterns. They give you the tools to hear what you're saying and consistently call back. Well, remember last week when you said such and such, and remind you. And then you start to put things together. And they can gently prod you and be like, well, I think it's interesting that you said this when last week you said that. And they can point out inconsistencies and whatnot, and that's fine. But they don't draw conclusions and or at least good therapists shouldn't, and put them on you. They will, they really do. The point is, you can't improve yourself if you don't think that there's improvement to be made, or if you don't understand what that looks like. Somebody just telling you what to do doesn't help. You need to figure out what to do. It has to be something that you choose for yourself, and that you understand the foundations of why it needs to be done, so that other behaviors that are linked to whatever the main issue is are something that you can begin to become aware of also. So anyway, he meets up with Eric, who mocks the fact that he's wearing a tie. Later on, he eventually takes it off. And Eric says something about how he wants to go to the party that's happening at Amy's house that evening. And Otis isn't particularly interested, but later on, Maeve brings it up that this is like the perfect time for them to try and get some new clients, that people talking about their sex lives and whatnot freely, and a place where people are going to be having interpersonal issues, that is going to be at a party. So as they're leaving, this guy walks by them with a bouquet. You guys. Oh my God. First of all, I haven't mentioned the door knocker that looks like a hanging dick, and I can't handle it. But secondly, this dude comes up to the front door, and it's really something, because I want to say, oh, it's like he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand how standoffish she's being, and that she's not interested. But the truth is, that's not necessarily it. It's just that some people are into somebody else who is aloof. Like, he can maybe see that she's being withholding, maybe that she's not that interested, and perhaps for him, that's a plus. Somebody like me, I want a person to be wholly invested and giving me all their attention. But some folks, they have a thing about someone who's distant, hard to get. There's all kinds of different names for it. And I feel like it's not even necessarily that he's oblivious exactly, so much as like, maybe he needs to look at what made him interested in her in the first place. The fact that she felt sort of unavailable to him, because she is, maybe that's something that he should look at. She lets him down easily, is not really the word I want, but she says, I applaud your bravado and your directness, and I hope that you find what you're looking for. And shuts the door in his face. She hands the flowers back. I really loved this so much. It was just sort of, it's such a beautiful moment of directness from her. The whole way that she words it, it's like he doesn't quite realize that he's being rejected until the door is already shut and he's turned around and thinking about it. And I don't know. I found this to be very fun. And I love that as he walks past Otis says, like, poor guy to Eric, because it's just, of course she's not going to be interested. And I have to mention again how beautiful she is. She answers the door and she's wearing this like turquoise top, this like loose silk blouse, and her eyes are so blue. And with her hair that's like that white blonde, it is just a good look. Bitch has it going on. So at school, I already talked about the thing with Maeve and her wanting to have like meet at the party. There's also the first client that Otis is meant to go and talk to. And as this is all happening, Adam has his moment with Amy. And he is in the chemistry lab, throwing notes at her, wanting to know why she won't talk to him anymore. How come I wasn't invited to your party? She says, we're finished. And he says, but why? And she lights the but why on fire. And eventually, at the end of the episode, she tells him that he's embarrassing, which is probably the most honest answer she could have given, but also is like such a devastating line. Like, somebody telling you that they are embarrassed of you. I don't know what's harsher than that. You know, that is really, I don't think I could get over that personally. So yeah, that killed me. And he, like, it seems like he is going to let it go and then turns up at the party. Like I said, he has the conversation with Jean outside where she confirms that he deserves closure, but does not advise him to push himself into this situation when Amy has made it really clear she doesn't want him there. And he completely sets that aside, climbs over the gate, which is frankly impressive because that's not a small gate, and then is like approaching the house when Amy sees him and urges everybody inside, and they shut the doors just before he can like barge in there. And this was the kind of thing that was sort of played for comedy as he's prowling around the house trying to get somebody to let him in, but is honestly really disturbing. This is the sort of thing that I feel like it's all you have to do is like change the music in the scene, and this becomes a horror movie. This is just the kind of behavior that is exhibited by somebody who is going to harm the woman in question and potentially could harm everyone else also. And we have just seen too much of angry men taking it out on the woman and any person who happens to be in the vicinity of the woman for me to have found this scene amusing or to find Adam at all sympathetic afterward. I just didn't. You know, this was incredibly threatening, and it bothered me that nobody else seemed to be willing to like just say that and confront that. Because, and I don't know what's going to happen next episode, you know, but I mean, it's just, we had that shooting in Atlanta. It was Atlanta, right? With the massage parlors, and there was a shooting. Oh man. I hesitate to bring this up because it's honestly really depressing. I say after already mentioning the mass shooting, but there was a, I think quadruple or quintuple homicide that happened, a few days ago because the estranged, I don't know if it was her child's father or just somebody that was an ex. This woman's ex turned up and wanted part of her stimulus check. And based on like the witness accounts, this is a man who had gotten her pregnant and then fucking dipped and didn't participate in the raising of his child at all. But for some reason felt entirely entitled to getting some of her stimulus money and insinuated that because she had kids and she got more money because she had children, that meant that she had it to spare, which like, just don't even think about the logic on that one, because anybody who think like paying for my own life is so expensive and I can't imagine including children in that. Like it just must be a fortune. And this man shot her brother, her sister, one of the kids, and somebody else. Like the house, he also shot her, but she managed to get out because the reason her brother, I think, got killed was because he stepped in front of her and took the bullet, allowing her to get away. She got shot, I think, in the shoulder, and she managed to like find somebody that she could hide with and call the cops. But yeah, this guy just came over because he wanted some money, refused to leave, got up in people's faces, and then wound up committing multiple murders over this, like a few $100s. I mean, the stimulus check is $1,400. If you have kids, it's like what, $2,000 maybe, $2,500. he was maybe going to try and get out of there with $600, and he was willing to kill multiple people for that. I just can't look at scenes like this and find it amusing. And he's like yelling through the window at a kid that he bullies. He's yelling at Eric, "Open the doors or I'll fucking kill you." I think that Adam, like his father later on in the episode, says that he's thinking to send him to military school. And personally, I am not sure that's a bad idea. Like, I don't know that that's a great place to send somebody who obviously has rage issues. And at the same time, I'm just like, I don't really know what else you do other than send the kid to therapy. And I don't see this father being willing to do something like that. It's just such a shame. I like the fight that he gets into. He finally, he breaks Amy's grandmother's urn on this dude. And this winds up being enough of an attention getter from Amy's family that it does get back to his dad. And, they are understandably, that's beyond the pale for them. And I'm not mad at them for that at all. I would like it if he could get therapy and that would be the solution. I just don't see his dad agreeing to that. And I really don't know. He seems like a genuine danger, he's out here. We've seen the way that he pushes Eric around. He has no problem with just punching down and exerting power. And once somebody has reached a certain point in their lives, and this is how they've chosen to engage with the world for a duration, it starts to get really difficult to break those habits of behavior. So the whole thing with Adam, it was sort of played for jokes, but it feels way too serious for that for me. So anyway, I'm going to backtrack now and we'll talk about the whole thing with Otis and his first client. So he meets up with her in that bathroom and he is talking to her, not like, I didn't really catch on to the fact that this is like a confessional booth. He mentions it finally. But he doesn't see the person that he's talking to. And he winds up saying something to Maeve later about I have to be able to see their face. This has to be more like a conversation. I can't have this anonymity thing. It's just too weird. And I'm really glad that he put it together that quickly. That this method just isn't really sound just to start off with. And what it is it's that, if you guys remember her name, you can tell me, but she's dating Anwar. Is that right? And she is having problems going down on him because she puked on his dick. And, Ashleigh says, no, Anwar's gay. That's right. Eric said that last episode. I totally forgot. Who is she dating then? Do we know? Are we aware of this? Regardless, Otis fucks up his explanation of he's trying to talk to her about the variety of other options, why it is that she feels like the need. And she says to begin with, if I don't go down on him, he won't go down on me. And he just, let's see. Ashleigh says that we don't know who she's dating, but her name is Olivia, who somebody asked a question. Ashleigh says the big question of the episode, though, Roberts or Hudson. I'm going to go with Hudson. I find Julia Roberts a little bit grating. Also, though, I don't watch a lot of romantic comedies, and it was really good that this happened right before the next episode that I'll be covering, which is for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and it's a whole romantic comedy thing. But y'all have to tune in for that one. So basically, Otis blows it, pun intended, and she leaves and is like, yeah, I'm not paying you, and also, fuck you all. And Maeve is sort of like, all right, well, clearly this was a bad idea. But then she realizes that what we have to do is give out freebies. And I think that might be Eric's idea, that he's the one who suggests this. What winds up being sort of tragic is at the end of the episode, when she and Otis realize that things are beginning to take off, Eric doesn't really have a place in this scheme. She's going to handle the appointments and the money, and Otis is going to be the one who actually performs the therapy. But what is Eric going to do? And at this point, maybe it doesn't seem hugely important, but first of all, Eric's gay, and that's significant in terms of like somebody who can talk to others about a particular like issue that's going on if they themselves are feeling like maybe they're gay or maybe they are bi, and they're just looking for somebody who understands this and commiserates with them. So I feel like Eric may have a place just by virtue of that. And also Eric is like so much more comfortable with sexuality in a way that Otis isn't. Like, he'll talk about it, but he uses incredibly clinical terminology that can really distance him from the sort of animal nature of what sex is. And I feel like Eric might be helpful in bringing it back down to earth in a way that is, it might be necessary. I think that Otis it's going to be important what he does, because he needs to bring in the knowledge and the expertise about just basic biology and human sexuality as like a concept, and the variety of kinks and whatever that are out there and methods of stimulation. But I feel like Eric is going to be the voice of the common man, where he's going to be like, well, you want to do the tip of the dick. That's where it feels the best. And that will be the way he says it, versus, you know, however many ways that Otis could find to talk about stimulating the glands under such and such, you know, like it would just, I don't know. There could potentially be something else on the horizon for Eric as well. But to me, that was what came to mind immediately, is just like, he could be the translator kind of, you know, and make this all feel like it is more relevant or just get people to understand what it is that Otis is even talking about, because it might not be that they're not comfortable using the terminology he uses. It may be that they don't even know what it is. They don't know what he means when he's talking, you know? But anyway, so then we have them going to the party. I really do love how Eric like tackles Otis to keep him from ringing the bell, because he's going there like way too early. And it's for me, if I used to host a lot of parties when I lived in Philadelphia, and I had a friend who used to show up as much as like 45 minutes to an hour early. And I finally asked my husband to talk to him about it, because it was, to me, that's just unspeakably rude. I'm not dressed. The house isn't even finished being set up yet. Like, he would show up and I would be in the shower and I'd hear the doorbell ringing. And I would have to like get dressed and ready knowing that there was already somebody in the house, and it was just the worst. So for me, I'm hardcore team Eric, and it's not because of a social thing with it just being like, oh, well, we just have to wait for more people to get here. Although I think that's also completely valid. I personally just appreciate not doing that, you know, like just as a host. Thank you. So let's double back and talk about Maeve for a second here, because there's a brief scene with her. She is, we find out, living in a trailer by herself. And the woman who seems to either own the park or who owns the trailer, she is asking for rent. And it's not clear whether Maeve had lived here with other people, or if she like got this place to live by herself and her family lives somewhere else. But later on in the episode, somebody yells out to her, "Is it true that all your family's in prison?" And I don't know if that's true or if that's why she's here. It doesn't look like a place that she could share because it's like not big, but people share tiny spaces due to poverty all the time. And she's in the middle of talking to this woman and turns around and throws up. And the woman says, "Let's hope you're not pregnant," but smirks to herself when she says it in a way that's deeply unpleasant. For me, it read like, "But we know you are because you're a big slut." That was just a vibe. And I was like, what the fuck is your problem? So she winds up going to I really enjoyed this. She goes to a convenience store. She steals a bottle of liquor and buys a pregnancy test, takes it at the party, which I thought was an interesting choice. And I don't really why? Like, I could see if you lived with family, taking it at a party is a great option because then nobody knows exactly who left it in the basket if it ever gets noticed at all. But if you don't live with family, then who's going to find it? Who's going to care? However, it may be that she's like, there is one person who lives with her and we just didn't see them in that scene. I don't think so, though, because of the way that she says, "I'll have your money by Monday." It sounds to me like she's solely responsible. If there were a child that she were caring for, they would have been there. She wouldn't be as free to like roam around and go to a party as she is. She'd be sort of tied down. And this also provides an explanation as to why she is so desperate for money, why she is so interested in doing things that can bring in a little bit of scratch, because she has to pay for her fucking rent. She's already coping with shit that she shouldn't have to at her age, So she goes to the party, takes the test. Apparently, it comes back positive. Do we see the actual result? Because all I remember is her looking at it and then looking at herself in the mirror and saying, "Idiot." And I assumed that this meant, "Oh, it came back positive, you fucking moron. How could you do this?" But I don't know if we saw it, because it could be an easy thing to say, "Idiot," just because you believed that you could have been pregnant and you're berating yourself for having even allowed yourself to be in the position where it could have happened, and she goes downstairs and grabs the jock, what's his name, away from his friends and drags him upstairs. And I'm thinking it's going to be to tell him that he knocked her up. And instead she goes to fuck him. And it's a very abrupt thing where it could be she's trying to, like, I don't know, reclaim something with him because of the fact that he was, like, flirting with this other girl and she clearly felt a way about it. It could be just a reaction to finding out that she's pregnant and this, like, emotional outburst and her not really knowing what to do with it, and he's right there and this is a convenient thing because she seems to use sex to, like, get past emotions because she doesn't want to deal with them. Or it could be that she wanted to, like, have sex with him a couple of times so that if it does turn out that she's pregnant, there will be little doubt that he is actually the father. There's a variety of reasons that she could react the way she does here. I'm hoping that she's not pregnant because I just don't want to deal with that storyline because it's so sad and depressing to me. But she may well be. It doesn't sound like she's being responsible if she's worried about this. And her vomiting like that just feels like that's always the shorthand in shows like that. Is somebody throws up, that means they're pregnant. So, oh my God. And I love the woman who asks her, "How old are you?" when she buys the pregnancy test. And she says, 12. I wish I knew who the father was. And I started cracking up. I was like, well, she just really cut that down, didn't she? Jackson, says Ashleigh, and no, we don't actually see it. Okay. Ashleigh says she maybe took the test at the party because she's not alone, so she can't break down and be upset. She just has to get on with it. That's a good point, because she really does seem to do everything she can to not feel things. And that would certainly fall in with the rest of her behavior. And I have to mention, at the end of the episode, what they have decided they're going to do in terms of like setting up the appointments is they are going to meet people at the sporting matches. And it turns out that it's swimming. That's what Jackson does. I really enjoyed this. First of all, oh my God, Jackson. He's standing up there like a fucking statue. He is perfectly built. It is astonishing to me. He does not look real. And like, for the record, all of the men up there are beautiful. And I mean, I say men, even though they're meant to be teen boys, but they're all men because they're all probably at least like 22 years old. But Jackson, out of all of them, is by far the most beautiful. I was just like, what? Thighs. And also, I really love the fact that he is ahead in swimming. Because like when he leaps off that, he's like 3 feet ahead of everybody hitting the water, and then obviously seems to be like the star of the show at the school. So I'm assuming that he's, at the front of the lists here. But this is such a trope and it's not even just a trope. I'm saying trope. It's a racist assumption that has been perpetuated for a long time that black people don't swim. And I really like the fact that we just met Jackson and we see him in the letter jacket. And I know for myself, I made an assumption, like football or basketball is what he's probably good at. Because low-key racism. And for it to be swimming just was not something that I expected. And I'm realizing now, in this universe, I don't know that football means soccer or because we don't know where they are. But nevertheless, I was really pleasantly surprised that they decided to sort of undercut expectations by having him be a swimmer. And also, holy shit, he's so pretty. It's really annoying. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Jackson asks Maeve out. She tells him again, ask me in a week. And earlier, when he asked if she was hooking up with anybody tonight, she said, ask me in an hour. But then she went and got him and hooked up with him. So I'm sure when he hears ask me in a week, he's feeling sort of like encouraged by that. Like he probably assumes that this is going to go well for him. I wonder what she means by ask me again in a week. Does she think he's going to come to his senses and lose interest? Does she think that, like, the word about her pregnancy is going to get out and maybe he isn't going to want to be involved with her? I don't see her, if she were pregnant, even telling him. Like, that was what I was assuming was going to happen in that scene just because she went and grabbed him like that. But privately, Maeve to me seems like somebody who wouldn't want the guy involved. She wouldn't want him to know. She wouldn't want his opinion on what to do. If she decided to have an abortion, they would never hear about it. If she decided to keep the child, nobody would like find out unless it were by accident. And she would just really keep that shit to herself. Because there are ways that you can like go through high school. And I had this happen with somebody that was in my school who I'd been sort of friendly with when I first moved there. And we sort of lost touch, and she started to look like she was putting on a lot of weight. And I found out a year later that she had been pregnant, and she had just been camouflaging it under really baggy clothes, making it look like she had gotten heavy, when in fact she was knocked up. And she had the child and came back to school, and nobody even knew about it. So it's not unheard of. So the whole thing with Otis and that couple, he is in the bathroom kind of freaking out because he has been trying to walk around the party and tell people that he is offering his services for sex advice. It is very awkward to watch. And when he's in the bathroom, it turns out that there's a girl sitting in the tub with the curtain drawn. And they begin talking to one another about what's going on with her, why she's hiding, what happened with her boyfriend. And eventually her boyfriend, who is looking for her, storms in. and Otis facilitates a conversation between the two of them where they begin communicating about the feelings that they are each having of frustration, that the other isn't ever listening to them. And he sets it up so that they are back to back in the bathtub, not looking at one another. This is always an interesting thing to me, the concept of like being able to talk more easily to somebody when you can't look at them in the eye. And it feels like it shouldn't work this way, but there's a reason that this is a method that is employed by a lot of people with, who maybe not necessarily your therapist, but who have taken classes in like effective communication. People will change what they're about to say based on the reaction they are already seeing on the face of the person they're talking to. So it'll be really hard to get a straight answer out of people sometimes because they are anticipating the disgust or the rejection or the shock or the anger from the other party. And making it so that they can't see that other person's face can really help with just getting the fucking words out of their mouth, you know? And this helps this couple for sure. And Otis, he is feeling like very gratified by the end of this. They begin making out and he just ducks out. But you can see that there's a feeling to it of like, wow, that worked, you know? And I really enjoyed this moment for him. Meanwhile, downstairs, oh my God, Eric is talking to that girl about the fact that she can't give head without throwing up. And he offers to help teach her how to suck a dick. And they go and get bananas. And they begin to do a blowjob demo in front of everybody. And he is, I guess, too drunk to really think about what the repercussions of this are going to be. Because I think anybody could have told him that this was a bad idea to just do in the middle of the room. But he goes ahead with it. And it gets caught on film. And eventually her gag reflex is triggered and she vomits all over him. And then her friend vomits all over her. And it's the worst. It's so horrible. Oh, you guys, I'm really lucky in that I have a difficult to trigger gag reflex. It's not like it's not there at all, but it's really tough to like get it going. And so I can deep throat like a motherfucker because just doesn't bother me. But I know a lot of girls who have this problem and it's just probably very inconvenient. And the next day, he winds up being roundly mocked in the stairwell because everybody has video of him giving a banana a blowjob. And I just really felt for him because I'm like, oh, I'm sure that felt like a good idea at the time. But dude, what are you doing? Oh, that's going to fucking follow him forever. And honestly, in a way, those two girls were lucky that he was there to be the object of scorn because the two of them were the ones who wound up throwing up, and they probably would have been the object of scorn if they were less popular and if he wasn't an easier target for everybody to zero in on. I am out of time, so I won't get into it too much, but remind me next episode to tell you guys about the role that I played in teaching my friends to give blowjobs when I was in high school, because I was the Eric, for sure, of my friend group. And I actually got a DM from somebody I haven't seen in a long time who shared a story with me that I had completely forgotten about, telling me how much she valued me as a friend to be like the one person that she could talk to about certain things because she didn't feel comfortable with other people. And so, Eric, what I'm saying is I get what you're doing here. I feel you. I am in the same place mentally in a lot of ways. I get it. But also, you got to pull back a tad. Just a tad, son, okay? Ashleigh says, yeah, I was going to message you to ask if you're sensitive to seeing vomit or even for future references if you have any triggers, and I kind of forgot. Well, thank you, but no, it was fine. I will say, vomiting can get me sometimes. This one didn't. I, happened to look away in the nick of time, so it was fine. But I tried to watch the Santa Clarita Diet, and that starts off with a long vomit joke, and I couldn't watch any more of it. I never got past the first episode. So Anyway, all right, I have to wrap, but thank you guys again so much for listening. Thank you to Ashleigh for commissioning this. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Don't forget to remind me about talking about that next episode, and I will see you soon with a new one. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.